Hi everyone, here's the puzzle. Scan the QR code or you can find a link below to this puzzle. As always, spend 5 or 10 minutes trying to solve it yourself, understanding the position and following the 6 steps that I've suggested in my previous videos. So if you haven't watched the six simple steps to solving chess puzzles, you can see the link now on your screen. Click and watch it first. First of all, understanding the position, let's count the material. Black is significantly down in material. They have a minor piece and a rook for a queen and a pawn. So it has to be something quite quick. Potentially, we are thinking about maybe winning the queen or checkmating the king somehow. So second, king safety. The safety of the black king is quite relative because there is significant material advantage, not significant, but material advantage of white, and potentially we can have a number of checks. It doesn't seem like there is a mating threat from white at the moment, but we still have to be very, very quick. So in comparison, White's king is in trouble. White's own pieces and pawns create a suffocating space. These 3 pawns, the bishop, all of these squares are under attack or taken by its own pawns and pieces. So the only square where white king can go is on e4. So we need to be mindful of that and use that to our advantage. Open files, diagonals, ranks. We obviously can see that how the rook is positioned. There is a diagonal here, file here for the, it's quite a good position for the queen actually. Anything else I think is irrelevant. So evaluating each piece, so we can think about the white's bishop. It's actually not doing much. It's only creating trouble for the white king. Queen is fantastically positioned. This rook doesn't do much. It doesn't help us achieve our goals. Knights are very tricky pieces, as you know, in any game. The thematic tactics with a knife is obviously a fork. So potentially we can think about, because we have 2 knights, maybe there is something around a fork. Step number 2, continuing from understanding the position, the possible motive due to white's somewhat disadvantaged position of the king is potentially a mating net or winning material. The obvious material that we could win, which would win the game, is the queen. There is one field where the white king can go in case of checks is on e4, but there is a field, there is a square of d6, which both knights are pointing to, which will create a fork. So it seems to me that this is the motive of this puzzle. So we need to urge the white king to go to e4 and then create a fork. Step number 3, identifying immediate threats. It's black's move. Immediate threats consist of taking the bishop or checking with the g5, potentially playing on d6, and creating a threat to the queen on c4. So for white, there is a threat of a check on c8. It doesn't achieve much at the moment. Having done the first 3 steps, let's establish candidate moves. Checks, captures, threats. So first of all, let's determine all possible checks. g5, only 1 check. So we have to consider g5 captures. Knight takes h4, knight takes g3, e3, d4, that's it. So 1, 2, 3, 4 captures. Threats associated with attacking the queen, such as rook b4, either knight to d6. So out of the mentioned possible moves, we need to think about those that do not make much sense and just ignore them straight away. So g5 is a check, which is sensible. We will consider that. Out of the captures, knight takes h4 doesn't make sense, recaptured, and g3 is an escape field. Knight takes g3, simply takes, doesn't make sense. Knight takes e3, king takes e3. There is no easy mate or fork or subsequent threats. Not a good move. Knight takes d4, bishop or pawn, preferably the bishop recaptures. No threats again. So all of the captures do not make sense. We ignore them. Threats. There is a move playing on d6 with either knight. Rook to b4 doesn't make sense. Will be simply taken. We need to consider these 2 moves. So we found 3 sensible candidate moves. Let's calculate them on step number 5. So first of all, the check on g5. We can go either to e4, g5, captures, captures. So first of all, g5. If the king goes to e4, we will check on d6 with either knight and win the queen. So on this move, there is also another move. Taking the knight, we can create a fork with the other knight and win the queen. So moves with the king lose almost instantly. So on g5, white has to play hg, fg, and then again, white has to move either to e4 or f5 with the same tactic, playing on d6 and winning the queen. So that seems like a very good choice. So I like g5. I think I've reviewed everything and I don't want to spend time and try and find another solution. So let's go to step number 6. Step number 6 is pausing and reassessing selected moves. So once again, it's our last chance to identify errors in our calculation. We might as well pause for a few minutes and reconsider and try and find better defenses for white. So we selected a move which was g5. Let's determine all possible moves for white. So there are 1, 2, 3 possible moves, and it seems nothing else. I'm not concerned about after g5 of the move of the king. I will check on d6. However, it seems like an obvious error that I've made in my initial calculation because this knight is actually pinned. So it cannot move. So therefore, this move g5 is actually a bad variation, which does not lead to a win. So on g5, white can take the knight and we lose the game because this knight is pinned and we cannot check on d6. Having identified an error, which is a very realistic error, because when I first solved this puzzle, I've actually instantly identified g5 and then king d6. But then I thought, well, for 2500, it's an extremely easy puzzle. So I thought maybe I made an error. So I've sent this puzzle also to my friend, and he instantly looked at g5 and playing knight d6 too. This is an error, and we need to go back to step number 5. So we had 3 candidate moves, g5 and either knight to d6. Now we understood that this knight is pinned. Actually, we have just one move left. g5 doesn't work. This move is not possible. So we only have one move on d6. Well, in puzzles, typically, if you identified lots of candidate moves and you have one left, probably it is going to be the solution. So, but let's calculate it properly. Knight to d6 attacks the queen. Queen has to move. It can give a check on c8, but we will capture it with this knight. And the issue is that queen has to move somewhere. So let's, for example, think about if it moves to d5 or e6. We will play g5. King cannot move to e4 because the knight is here attacking this field. It cannot move to f5, again attacked by the knight. So it has to capture only move, and we will mate on g5. If the queen goes to d5, it may be able to capture on g5, but we will recapture with the knight since there is no longer a pin. So any possible move, for example, knight d6, queen e6, g5 check, hg, fg mate. If the queen goes to d3, for example, it's going to be the mate same way. So that's the solution. We can again pause for a second and reassess all possible replies. But g5 is an inevitable mate. So if you try to avoid the mate, then you will lose the queen. So I'm confident with the move knight on 5 to d6. Computer decides to play on d5. There is an inevitable threat of mate. Captures, captures, check, takes, and we are up in material. White captures, and this is an easy win with an extra rook. Thank you for watching. See you next time.